As I said, let's speak about a little bit about cyber and about risks, threats, challenges, etc. And I want to start with you, Mr. Franco, as the person in charge of, assessing the threats, risks in Israel. Tell us, what are we seeing? What should we prepare for? How do you tackle this issue?
Thank you, Yoav. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Israel National Cyber Directorate are responsible for all the Israeli civilian domain. It's mean from the critical infrastructures, of course, via smart cities till the man in the street. So from our perspective, we need to handle with all those situations. If we are speaking about how we manage the cyber in the municipalities, we are creating 21 units for each sector, for the health sector, for the finance sector, and of course, for the municipality sectors. So those units try to find how to take the cities to the next steps of cybersecurity. But as we are speaking about people, we know that 70% from the attacks start or through by peoples. So the first questions for me to the audiences is how much we are vulnerable. So if I ask you, please raise your hands if you have a mobile phone. Please raise your hands. How many from you have antivirus on your mobile phones? Please raise your hands. Okay, you understand? This is lack of knowledge. So when governments start to handle with a situation like cyber, so she needs to consider how to handle with awareness. What is the major risk? What the people knows and what they don't know. So first of all, it's to create a culture to adopt a cybersecurity plan. So this is the first step. Yoav?
Okay, no, with you. I want to elaborate and ask you, Mayor Poe, looking at the local government, what is your main challenges and opportunities, because it comes together. There are lots of opportunities as well.
Yes, thank you, and thank you to the Federation for bringing us all together. My city is like many cities around the United States where we have many points of vulnerability. We operate our own, well, actually 5 utilities. We produce and distribute our own electricity, natural gas, water, wastewater, and telecommunications. All of those are vulnerable to attack. And we are also under many national mandates for minimum security standards. And so part of it, we are part of a standard called SCADA that deals with the national electrical grid and what we are responsible for. And so that point of vulnerability deals at a very high level with minimum software protection, hardware protection, points of entrance and vulnerability. But then we also have more than 2,000 people that work for our city that are interacting with our systems every day. And as the first speaker said, those are the folks that probably don't have as much awareness about how vulnerable they actually are. And we know that the vast majority of all cyber attacks come from one person sitting at their laptop or their desktop or on their mobile, clicking a link or following some request and that opening the door to the hacker, or bringing in personal information to their work interface and then the attacker getting through there. Because for all of us, we can use two-factor authentication. We can change our passwords every 3 months. We can be very strong at work, but if people bring something from their personal account or home, where we're usually very much less diligent, then the attack can enter through there. So for us, it's much about training, education, helping people understand how they may be creating vulnerabilities, and then making sure that we're constantly updating their knowledge and information to keep them vulnerable from attack.
So, Ms. Ziplis, before we turn to the private sector, how does it look from, the governmental point of view, mainly when it comes, to legal problems, because there are so many legal problems that you're dealing with mainly of privacy, security, that on one hand you want to prevent some of the things that were just said, but on the other hand, we live in democracies, most of us, so we need to have rights.
Yeah, and I think we do have rights, so that's not the problem. The problem is, at least in Germany, the question whether companies have to stand up for what they do. The Haftung, I don't know the English word for it right now. Accountability, yeah, okay, probably, yeah. Because they don't do it right now. They just sell their software, but if anything happens with the software, nothing follows for the companies. And this is a problem we have to face, and where we should discuss how we could end this. In Germany, we do have, as you might know, we are a federal state, which means we have a federal government and we have the so-called Länder. And the communities, the cities, belong to the Länder. So there we have a constitutional divide, and the Länder are responsible for the communities. And we do not have security guidelines for all the municipalities in Germany, which is something we badly need, I think. And we should also go to one service provider for the communities, so to make sure that they are all on the same standard. This is something we do not have. And just a few months ago, we had really big breakdowns from communities where a hacker influenced the systems, and whole cities were not able to communicate by internet for a week or two. So that was really bad. So we know we are very vulnerable if we don't do the necessary secure things, and that's important, therefore, to do it.
So, as I said, we'll turn now to the private sector. We've got two guys, Guy Mizrahi and Guy Dagan. Guy Dagan, we'll start with you. Speaking of, defending from the defensive side, where do you see vulnerabilities? What should be done? Elaborate, please, because you look at it from the outside, unlike the three previous speakers who look at it from the inside. So, as an attacker or protector, how do you look at it?
So, usually as a protector. Hi, thanks.
You have to be an attacker to be a protector.
Yeah, but usually the basic truth in cybersecurity is that the more interface you have with the outside world, you're more vulnerable. There's more points of entry. And when we're speaking about about smart cities, we're actually opening the interface to everything. Our smart homes are part of our smart cities. And this is something that will make defense over smart cities really, really hard. Because as an attacker, I have more points of entry. And I do relate to what previous speakers here have talked about, and this is about the human factor. The other fact is that about 70%, as Rafi said, 70% of attacks begin by exploiting the human factor. Now, as a person that is handling awareness now for a lot of companies in private sector and a little bit in government, I can tell you that right now, the awareness status is not that good. And when we're going to talk about smart cities, when everything is connected, smart cities are like just giant IoT hubs. Everything is connected. And when everything is connected and the awareness level is that low, smart cities will be much more vulnerable. And I don't think it's about technology. Technology is great. But still, with all the technology that we have today to defend, 70% of attacks still happen through the human factor. Now, if we don't take care of the human factor and we always try to compensate over him, then it's just like Einstein said. Well, if you try doing the same and getting different results, well. So I really do believe that awareness is the key when it comes to smart cities. That we have to actually make a governmental and a municipal effort in order to strengthen and make cybersecurity a part of the organizational culture or a part of the day-to-day behavior of everyone. That way, we can actually beef up the security for the smart cities and in general.
Thanks, Guy. Guy Mizrahi now from Raisin Group. You know, I entered thinking it's, it's an opportunity. Listening to the previous speakers, it becomes a nightmare. It seems like a nightmare.
I don't think that it's the nightmare. You know, this is our life. We're exposed. If a hacker points to any one of you, he can hack you. We can do it right now if you want to see. I'll give you a short demo of how a hacker works, okay? Please raise your hand if you arrived to Israel in the last 2 weeks.
So you don't have corona.
Keep your hand raised, please. From the one who came to Israel, who has a cellular phone, a smartphone, keep your hand up. And from you guys, how many of you received an SMS message that welcomes you to Israel and basically asks you to use your phone? So, most of the people here received an SMS message that basically their phone are connected. If I would manipulate this SMS message, your phone was infected. Basically, I could hack each one of you during your first use of the cellular phone. And those capabilities are available on the market today. Basically, an infector for a cellular phone is not that hard to acquire. So basically, this little demonstration just made you understand that basically each one of us is exposed. We can do those kind of things. We can hack you, and in your phone you have a connection to your private and to your organization and email. You have connection to your networks, to your LinkedIn, to your Facebook account, to your personal and work assets. And most of us, as Rafi asked before, raise your hand if you have an antivirus on your phone. So basically, most of the people don't have it. This is a very easy way to hack. Most of us exposed. This is not a nightmare. This is the truth. This is what we live in. Thank you.
Yeah, but shouldn't
Go ahead.
Shouldn't the response to what you said, shouldn't it be that we have people for responsible disclosure? I mean, have everybody to tell where there is a possibility to hack and where there is a
So I'll ask about it in a second, because I want to ask you, Rafi, go back to you. What I hear from now is that we're lacking education. We just don't know.
So, first of all, because you're mistaking two questions, please, after the panel, implement free antivirus from your app stores. This is the first education. This is what we can adopt immediately after we finished. Second, in Israel, just last week was the Cyber Awareness Week for elementary school. My daughter, 11 years old, told me, Rafi, we learn how to put password and to change password in our mobile phone, and we also learn how to create a strong password in our social networks. So I told her, this was from our program, from Israel National Cyber Directorate program. So basically, the first layer of education must be on the elementary school. So basically, in each city, in each municipality, there are a lot of elementary school. So you can adopt some one-day education, 1 hour education for cyber awareness. This is the start. So when she told me that she learned that, I know now she's a step ahead and she's less vulnerable to a popular attack. Of course, we have more and more programs. We are working with a lot of Israeli NGO to reduce the risk and to increase distribution to the market with lawyers, with the Lawyers Association, with the industrial offices. So actually we try to get more and more audiences to our awareness. Also we create 10 tips on the aviation website. When we will see a landing or you leave to a journey, you got some 10 tips for your safe journey. So we start to find a lot of points to achieve more and more awareness. But basically, I think the municipality are not ready right now to the next step of awareness. And in the next session, I will want to try to give some tips.
I'm missing my old Nokia by the minute. Mayor Poe, what's the vision? Where do if I told you sky's the limit, and sky's the limit when it comes to cyber, and you want a smart city and a safe city and a connected city and everything, what's your vision like 5, 10, 20 years from now? What would you like to see?
I think we're already seeing it, and I think some of us on our tours yesterday started to see a glimpse of the future. For example, in my city, we have our nation's first all-electric, completely autonomous shuttle. And so it's going between our university and our downtown, no driver, and just operates on its own. That's exciting. It shows you a glimpse into the future. But I think as the professionals here would say, that's a great point of attack. That people will be on there. This shuttle is connected to the larger network of the city, and actually is connected to an international network that's collecting data for AI. At the same time, we're going to have a bunch of human beings on that shuttle with their phones interconnected with the Wi-Fi. I think we just heard that as we connect more and more of our city, that provides opportunities for closing equity gaps, closing disparity gaps, giving more people access to more opportunity. But it also creates these vulnerabilities, and so it's going to need to, I think for us and probably for everybody here, be a coordinated national education and understanding campaign. If Gainesville as a municipality does a great job educating our residents and our neighbors, our co-workers on good cybersecurity, but right across our city border, that same thing is not taking place, it doesn't matter. And so it really, I think, is up to us as cities to engage with our national governments to create a unified, tested, effective education campaign, and that I think accountability standards, both for effectiveness and basic rights, privacy rights, are in place. And this becomes difficult. For many of us, those get tested through courts and can take time, and the courts move much more slowly to determine basic privacy rights than the speed of technological advancement, and something we're definitely struggling with in the United States.
Guy Dagan, looking at what you just heard, as I said, the sky's the limit when it comes to cyber and cyber opportunities, etc. But what would you tell cities that want to implement and want to start, with smart electricity, but end with everybody being connected to everything, everyone, all time, saving, allowing, etc., etc.? What would you tell them? What do they need to do?
I would tell them first that they need to change the cassette, change the state of mind. Understand that when we're talking about smart cities, that means that I can hack the smart city throughout my smart home. by hacking a smart home.
Give me, sorry for interrupting. Give me an example. If there is such a thing, a smart city, we've heard Ariel Margalit speaking of, a collaboration with the city of New York, Manhattan. What could be done? I mean, you as a hacker, you as hackers, what could you do if the city is smart, if there's a good hacker?
Where to start?
I don't know. Say, give us a hint.
I can scare you really bad. I can hijack.
It's Israel. It's hard to scare us.
No,
go ahead.
Right. But I can hijack smart buildings and DDoS them and just do a denial of service attack on them and just hold them hostage and have the smart city pay me ransomware.
Where's Bruce Willis when we need him?
Trust me, he wouldn't help this one. I can stop every critical infrastructure. Right now, as we heard, there was a great ransomware attacks against cities in the States, Atlanta, Georgia, and other cities, and that like shut them down for a week or two, but this was just their internal computer network. In smart cities, I can just like shut down the city itself, and it can all start from entering a smart home, and from a smart home, like moving laterally into the smart cities, which means that the danger is much more, I'd say, scary or immediate than what we ever thought about. And again, I come back to the fact that it's not technology that's going to save us. Technology will always be hackable. We build the technology of today, but the attackers, well, in the game between the attackers and the defense, it's just like a cat and mouse game. But the defenders, we're the mouse, we're not the cat. And technology of the attack is always one step ahead.
So before I go back to you, Brigitte, I want to ask you, Guy. We heard it's the land of opportunities for hackers, but there always be, a weak part in the chain. Always, you can educate everyone, but at the end of the day, we see people do mistakes. We've been all educated to drive safely, but still we do accidents, so we lose. So it's a lost cause. It's a lost game. What we hear here.
I don't think that it's a lost game. I think that we should, invest in technology. We should invest in the human factor. We should invest in all of those things. We should protect them, because if we don't do it, we'll definitely be hacked. And you can start by talking about the electricity, but when I'm thinking about the smart city, I'm thinking about people that are swimming in sewage. This is way more scary than just electricity.
Let me not imagine that. So
basically, a hacker can manipulate everything, but he will have hard times if you'll defend your technology right, if you'll defend your infrastructure, and if you'll educate your people, because if you don't do any one of those, you're exposed.
So Brigitte, back to you. You've heard everyone here. As we said before, it's a huge opportunity, huge, enabling us to save money, to get better lives, etc., etc. But it's an unbelievable threat. I mean, that can, as Guy said a couple of minutes ago, he can shut down a whole city, he can take hostage a whole skyscraper, do everything. What do we do?
Well, somebody said it before already. I think we need a mind shift. I mean, we do not have to say any longer that it's safe and nobody should be scared. Have your smart home, buy your smart home, close your garage, close your home with your smartphone, stuff like this, and you are safe. Don't tell ever you are safe. I think we need a productive handling with weak points in the systems. We have to say that there are weak points and we have to handle with them. And the first thing is that we have to get the companies and the people to tell us when there was an attack and when something happens. That's a big discussion in Germany, because most of the companies do not want to say that they have been hacked. So, but if you don't know that they have been hacked, you can't do anything against it. So this has to come back to the authority. Like you are obviously here in Israel, we have the German BSI, you probably know them, and they have to act in this case, and they have to know what happened.
Yes,
that's
but
one of the things.
What would you say, for example, we know that the figures of banks being hacked are enormous, but they don't tell it. They rather pay Because if they told us, we would take our money and leave the bank, and they lose all credit. What do you do? How do you do it? You were in the...
as I said before, you have to have a mind shift. You have to tell everybody, nobody is safe ever. Don't ever try to do so.
You have to force them by law? You have to...
Well, no, it's not a question of law. It's a question of mindset. It's a question of communication. It's a question of talking about what happened. It's a question of being a good hacker. Show you what can happen and show and then change the software. These kind of things. Not always go like, I'm scared, but go like that things can happen, so I have to be aware and have a productive teaching of the people working in a city.
Okay. Rafi, take the microphone, but I want to ask you about that. Bridget was right. Why in Israel we don't have, for example, why don't you force companies to admit that they were hacked and they had to pay, because it's my money at the end, it's not theirs?
So I will answer for your question. First of all, we have a law for critical infrastructures from 2002. So we guide the Israeli infrastructures, and we are working by the natural sectors. So most of the sectors, they have a regulation for the energy sector, the finance sector, and the health sector, and so on. But I say the smart cities with 5G, with IoT, create something new. So all those components bring us to, first of all, it's increase the degradation, but also it's increase the vulnerability. So what we are doing from government perspective right now is couple actions. First, we are working with the OECD to mark products. So tomorrow, not tomorrow, but a couple years from now, when you are going to buy the new Frigidaire, so you understand how much is secure from cyber attack, like Safe Energy, A, B, C, D, E, and so on. And second, we understand there are some layers. So we need to consider where to put our defense. Because if we are start with a house and go from a building, and from building to a neighborhood, and from neighborhood to city, we need to consider how to manage the risk. Right now, Israel leads some POC, proof of concept, when and where we want to secure. And this is the way to reduce the risks from smart cities. So basically, this is the second issue that we are working right now. And the third issue is to understand that a smart city and smart building create a new architecture between sectors. So if right now the building built by the economic ministry, we think, or we thought that maybe the architecture between the ministries will change. Maybe the focal point will be the communication ministry or maybe others. So right now we are dealing with this situation in our government.
So back to you, Mayor of Gainesville. Obviously you want to push forward the opportunities, you know, to bring prosperity to your citizens within your city. How much you invest in securing them? Because that's something that most people, most companies do not want to invest. You know, we all buy insurance to our houses, but we do not buy insurance to the cyber world. I mean, I was involved in a think tank dealing with what Guy just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, skyscrapers and tall buildings, and not even a single owner wanted to protect. They put their money on fire alarms and everything, but cyber, until they'll be hit, they won't invest. Same with cities. How do you get to put the money where it's not sexy to put it?
Yeah, I think it depends, you know, what kind of system you live in. America, obviously, very large country and population and geography. We have a very complex governmental structure with federal and state and local. I sometimes envy like Israel, where the municipality can deal directly with the national. So it's complex, but I want to bring us back to where we started, which is where we can get the highest return on investment, and that is with educating the individual user where most of the attacks start. That takes the least amount of money. You get the highest return on your investment. You prevent the most attacks. You know, and then for the you know, sort of very what we call, you know, back of door, back of house attacks, you know, with our utility, with the transportation network, with the wastewater treatment, that's where you need a standardized approach that government gets involved with the private sector that develops the protections to make sure that they are being upgraded and are utilizing the best technology available. But, you know, from somebody who, all of us in government, you know, every tax dollar matters, and we have to make difficult choices about, you know, how we invest that money to support our neighbors. And when it comes to cybersecurity, we will by far do the most good for the most people by investing in that education campaign, helping them understand how critical they are in preventing this type of attack.
So, Ms. Zypries, you were speaking of a mind change, a mindset. Where would you invest your money? In changing the mindset of the people, in advanced systems, in protecting them? Because it's impossible. There's always a need for more money than the money that exists.
Well, I think that the same as usually when you invest your money, you should have some accounts and you should have some gold and some others. And that's the same here. You should invest money in educating people. I mean, the mayor of Kiel, who is in our delegation, told me yesterday that they regularly send mails to the people working in the administration. And they had these kind of mails where, you know, we put up a Christmas market and here is a free sausage for you and a beer. And open the link and you get the coupon and you can go. So 30% opened it. And of course, then you have to have these put up and say, hey, if this was secure, was important, you know. Yeah, these kind of things, I guess you have to do at least every half year. And others of these kind as well. And you have to give money to the mind shift and have to tell people you are not secure. We have to talk about what's happening, and you, companies and cities, have to tell us if you were hacked. And we need hackers, good hackers, hackers, which talk to people and say that's what we can do, and get up more secure software on your smartphone and PC and wherever.
Talk a couple of things. Ethical hackers. It's a beautiful term. I'm still looking for ones, but I'm moving to selling sausages.
I think you have to here.
That's the outcome. No, I'm kidding. Both guys, I want to ask you, both of you, decide who's first. Looking prospectively to the future, where are we heading on both worlds, on the world of opportunities when it comes to smart and safe cities and the world of threats, challenges?
In the immediate future, there is the biggest challenge, because today you have all kinds of systems that today are vulnerable. And if you want to close the vulnerabilities, it's not that easy. Some of them will need to be replaced. They were not designed as a secured element, and they didn't have cybersecurity in mind when you design it. So basically, in the next 5, 10 years, maybe even 15 years, we have a big problem because we are exposed technology-wise, and the only chance that we have to close these vulnerabilities or, you know, to minimize the exposure is to educate people. In the far future, maybe 20 years from now, some of those systems will be already replaced with systems that are designed today with security in mind, so we will have better chance to protect ourselves.
Guy Dagan.
I totally agree with Guy. Right now, we're dealing with system that hasn't been gone through SSDLC, what we call Secured Software Development Lifecycle, which hold them vulnerable just as they came out from the factory. as we can say it. And I totally agree that right now we have to put our faith in the human factor. Until we all get replaced by robots, then the fact is that 70% of attacks begin by exploiting us. And I really do think that we need to speak about awareness, but changing the state of mind as awareness. Stop teaching awareness at work. Start teaching awareness at home. Our homes and our work are blurring right now. As Rafi said, we're bringing our laptops, our mobile phones to work. We need to understand, and I think that's the major thing for the next couple of years. We need to understand that talking about cyber, not being scared about cyber, is going to be part of our day-to-day lives. And this is where we're going to go, and this is where we should go, until we manage to design new systems that have actually like the smart refrigerator that will be built with security on its mind, instead of making time to market and innovation being the two key projectiles in order to get this product into the market.
Rafi Franco, last word.
Thank you. So first of all, in Israel, we have a government decision for investing in cybersecurity. 8% from the IT budget must go to cybersecurity, also in our municipality. This is a first action. Second, in the Israeli cybersecurity methodology, we have a big issue and big layer with awareness. We are believe in awareness, in changing the culture, and I think the main idea to implement the new culture is by fun, games. We have a lot of games, we have a lot of accessories to adopt a cyber culture. We don't want it would be a difficult situation. And if it's fun, it goes better. Thank you.
So I want to thank you all, Mayor Poe, Ms. Zipris, Rafi Franco, Guy Mizrahi, and Guy Dagan for attending this panel.